Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Omnia Performance Podcast with myself, Fergus Crawley, and
myself, a big Johnny Payne. We've still not decided whether that's going to land. Johnny Payne,
Johnny Payne,
all the same.
all the same. Well, there's some bars forming there.
Kind of works.
I'm not going to ask you to start freestyling. What we'll do next time instead is you'll prepare something rigidly and we'll pretend it's freestyle to make you look hyper intelligent.
Perfect.
Because we really need to bring up your reputation for hyper intelligence, Johnny. Christ.
Right.
Anyway, what are we talking about? We're talking about why people should become hybrid athletes, and essentially what the value is that we see beyond apparently clout chasing on social media these days, because I think that's what a lot of people associate it with. But no, there is much more to it than that, in our opinions, and actually our personal experiences. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do exactly that, please do make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on. Check us out on YouTube, as there's a big focus on video content, and make sure to share this episode or an episode previously with a friend, as well as sign up to the mailing list via the show notes down below, where you can receive all sorts of exciting updates, offers, and shenanigans written by Johnny and I, trying to seem hyper intelligent. So to undo that reputation quickly and with abundance, let's start talking, Johnny. So why should people become hybrid athletes? Let's first of all look at this from the frame of reference of strength or bodybuilding biased athletes focusing on a aerobic or endurance dominant sport with a specific goal. Because we could sit here and say, well, zone 2 cardio will make you more efficient resting between sets, and all you really need to do is a little bit here and there around your strength training. But if you are a powerlifter or a bodybuilder who says, I'm going to train for my first 5K, what is the merit in setting a specific goal in a non-supportive sporting discipline, thus hybrid?
I felt that was like I was really trying to keep up there. So we're looking at a strength athlete who is doing 5K. Is that what you told me?
Essentially, yeah.
And what's the point?
Well, for any strength athletes listening that have maybe thought, I might do a park run at some point, but no, I'm a strength athlete, I wouldn't do that. Why should they take the lead?
That's kind of where the introduction to a lot of this started, in actual fact. It's a kind of real good example, isn't it, of where people can kind of lean into what might or might not be hybrid. And that, I think that's a great example to start with anyway, is that if you've got an out-and-out strength athlete, like a powerlifter, who does exactly that, so looks at people doing a park run or thinks a 5K run might be quite good, it looks like quite good fun, and then has to say, but I can't do it because ... I'm a strength athlete, I suppose is where the ... goes. There are sort of massive carryovers from learning how to do that at 5K, from understanding how to do that 5K, and a lot of proprioceptive things, a lot of physical things that you're going to get from it that you can take back to lifting, which is a start anyway. So it's going to give you more that's going to take from you if you do it right. But the most obvious thing, you mentioned it already, is it should make you a more efficient and better lifter, which is contrary to popular belief, contrary to instinct, perhaps even a certain amount of misguided logic. But I think actually the benefit there is just going to make you healthier. Genuinely, that's where the benefit comes from. Is people, when we first started kind of promoting the idea of hybrid back in the day, Alex and I talking to people about being quote unquote hybrid, we were really looking at really, really strong powerlifters. We were talking about guys that are shifting,
Chris Gethins of the world and everything,
shifting 700 pounds off the floor for reps, and then talking about other people doing running, and we're saying, hey, why don't you do a little bit of running? And they're saying, fuck you, I want to continue lifting. Why are you trying to ruin my life? And then you get deeper into a conversation, and a very American phrase was being winded. Over here that would be.
I get winded by a set of stairs, man.
Yeah, over here that's because somebody's punched you really hard in the belly. Oh, you winded me.
Yeah.
But being winded over there was something that these guys talked about a lot in relation to the children. So it was a case of going up the stairs or playing with the kids in the back garden, and it was like a sacrifice that they felt they had to make, or a kind of a midpoint that couldn't be passed. Because I am a lifter, I have to accept that throwing my kids in the air is actually going to be hard. And what we're saying is we're saying and still saying is, if you can train hard and continue training hard, but also gain back that opportunity to play with your kids, which is massive, and gain back the opportunity. My old, slightly more facetious go-to was, it's not much use dragging 300 kilos off the floor if you can't even run for the bus afterwards, and you just got to fucking walk back, and then you're too aerobically unfit to do it. Is that you add these elements to your life, you get all these things back, and it takes nothing away, nothing whatsoever, and it adds. So everything it does is additive. Everything it does is performatively additive, and perhaps more importantly to me, back then talking to those people, and me now in the position that I'm in as a dad, the performative aspect is secondary to that overall lifestyle. But if I get both, then I've won the lottery. I can keep lifting. I'm not pulling 700 pounds off the floor, but, only about 650. But I can keep lifting.
Jonny can't deadlift 650 for anyone that's new around here. That was sarcasm.
Not today, I've got a sore knee. But if I can keep lifting, I can keep enjoying that kind of process. I keep enjoying what I get from the gym, what I get from that particular side of my life. I can also open up all these other things, which we'll explore further on in this conversation, I imagine. But it gives me back time with my kids. So this is something we've talked about in other aspects, is the how much pushing yourself in a sport, putting yourself into a sport, specializing in a sport, or even specializing, if that's a possible thing, in hybrid, can take away from you if you don't manage it. But at that very base level, if you do it right, it's doing nothing but giving.
I think key caveat here is if you want to win at the IPF Worlds with gold, or you even want to get to the IPF Worlds full stop, if you even want to get to the Europeans, to be honest, if you want to win your weight classes as an athlete, then there's probably no room for this. But what you've referred to is much more of a holistic relationship with training, where people are strong because they like to be strong rather than strong because they want to be the best powerlifter in the world. And most people that train are training for their own benefit. And that's where it's important to consider the exposure to other benefits and gain from other disciplines that don't actually contradict one another as much as you might have been led to believe.
Well, there's just to cut you off there for a very good reason, is that if you want to win the IPF or you want to win the Europeans, you want to win your weight class, there's perhaps no room to focus on a 5K and focus on completing that particular distance, because then you've got to focus on what does the pacing mean, what does this mean, what's the other. But there's a shit ton of merit still in those positions. We prove that over and over. It's taking those IPF winning athletes pulling at the highest possible level. These people who were on the podium that we're talking about, and giving them back their life a little bit without taking away, and actually, again, adding to it. So whilst there's probably no merit in saying to an absolute specialist, hey, why don't you look over here whilst you're concentrating with laser focus on this thing? Because that's no use. But we can say, why don't we add this thing to your laser focus and give you a little bit of an engine in the background that actually applies positively? That in of itself is hybrid. That's that kind of born out of Alex and my experience in knowing that we were thinking, oh, I can do this aerobic thing, or oppositely around for me, in actual fact, we can do these things across the board. And then you think, shit, I've just been humbled by the fact that I've never trained properly for this. We found that, scientifically and physiologically and anecdotally, there's so much can be gained from even just playing with some of the kind of, some of the peripheral parts of that, which would be just aerobically being capable of throwing your children in the air.
I'd slightly disagree, because I think that wouldn't be in and of itself in that example hybrid. That would be strength and conditioning for your primary sport. And what would nuance that and make it quote unquote hybrid would be setting a specific goal that can be measured. Whereas the situation you've described is health driven, which is not inherently a bad thing in any way, shape or form, but is and this is where the sort of narrative online of, oh, hybrid's just strength and conditioning, we were doing that for years, man. I don't know why I had a lisp. Sorry to anyone with a lisp, but that wasn't. I
found it amusing.
Yeah, it was well executed as well. No offense to anyone with a lisp. I didn't mean it in that way, but let's just associate the Redditor that I'm referring to as having that accent and speech challenge. Strange, interesting how we've gone down this angle, but nonetheless, I actually accidentally had a lisp there, and I'm trying to recover from it. And now I'm wondering,
I've got a bit of a lisp.
Why did my tongue get stuck between my teeth? I don't know. Anyway. I think the reality is that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of zealots for individual sports that are saying, oh, hybrid's nothing new, it's just strength and conditioning. Well, no, it isn't, because rugby players that do lifting are doing it to be a better rugby player. Yeah. And they are not, therefore, training squat, bench, and deadlift in the gym to also prepare for a powerlifting competition. And that's different, because that is supportive training for your primary sport, whereas hybrid training is not supportive for the other sport. It's in fact the contrary. And the challenge is to balance non-supportive training for concurrent training disciplines that do inherently sort of contradict one another in energy systems. And I think this is why I sort of wanted to flag that with the nuance there.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right to make the distinction. What's interesting about that distinction, and I think you're right to correct me because I'd kind of gone about that the wrong way, but the entry point then for somebody to then become a hybrid athlete is that kind of introduction to that health aspect. So you mentioned Chris Gethin earlier on. He was a good example. Alex worked directly with him, and so did, forgive me, I've forgotten the name of the other coach that worked with him. But they took an out, and if anybody who doesn't know who Chris Gethin is, he's an extraordinary Welsh bodybuilder with a physique that needs 2 doors and all that kind of stuff. And he'd been born and bred, not born that way clearly, but his training history was entirely that. And conversations about hybrid athletics and the idea of it allowed him to maintain, continue to adapt as a bodybuilder, to continue to grow and attend to an Ironman. But that was born out of conversations about the health benefits of adding a little bit of aerobic stuff.
His gateway drug was to improve his recovery between sets for bodybuilding purposes, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Like described.
So that's what I'm saying. So that kind of entry point becomes health, or becomes kind of additional strength and conditioning elements, which you would apply conditioning for bodybuilding, etc. And anything. Can I actually pursue 2 things at once, as you've said, do 2 different ends of the spectrum? And the answer was, well, why don't we take one of the most extreme examples of that and see if we can't put him through an Ironman? And some of the result there was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, you could. He became an Ironman, literally. And also, I think within the same matter of months, won another bodybuilding competition at a excessive weight class.
It was enormous. I think it goes to show that essentially you won't know. It's not even necessarily specific to training or hybrid training or anything, but you won't know what you dislike or like until you've given it a crack. Yeah. And that's kind of where I massively, having previously been somebody who had a bit of an identity attachment to one method of training that wasn't actually as fulfilling for me as it once was. I had no aspirations to go to the worlds to win this anymore. It was a long way past that. It was just what I did and who I was. And actually, I therefore limited myself from exploring other things that could have potentially been very rewarding. And I have since discovered, whereby I think for strength athletes to endure a little bit more in terms of from an aerobic point of view, or to commit to the time to develop that a little bit more. So if their friends ask them to walk up a mountain at the weekend, they don't think, oh no, I am physically very committed to my training, but not aerobically capable enough to go and do that with you. That's kind of where I see the word ready for anything gets thrown around quite a lot these days. But if you are a recreational athlete that enjoyment focused, I think there's a huge amount of merit to being spread enough across, having enough of a baseline in every energy system to be able to dip your toe into different things. It doesn't mean you need to do it really well. It doesn't mean that you need to disprove X, Y, or Z, but it means that if you are well-rounded enough as an athlete at recreational level, then you are open up. You are open to a lot more things that is a bit more of training freedom, I would call it. Yeah. We can easily become slaves to our own training identities. And I mean, even since I've made this transition, I kind of had a bit of a wrestle with that personally, when I felt like you are a triathlete that lifts heavy, and I clung onto that for 6 months longer than I should, which has kind of made me have to take a sort of mandated psychological break from triathlon. Yeah. But the itch is returning. 2025, I'm confident will be the year. But yeah, I fell into the same trap that I did when I was a powerlifter, which was, this is not as fulfilling for you as it once was. You are a recreational athlete, therefore find something that is fulfilling rather than clinging onto this identity attachment that actually maybe isn't as rewarding as it once was. So why not apply the same training principles to something new and exciting and see how far you want to push that. If it is just to be a bit fitter, to walk to the bus or run to the bus or play with your kids while still getting stronger and more jacked, fantastic. You've developed yourself in one way and that's supportive and better. But if you then decide, you know what, I'm enjoying my Monday evening intervals up this hill. I wonder if I could push this to 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Maybe I'll go to a track in a few weeks. This is fun. Look, I'm meeting all these new people. I'm doing all these new things. I might buy a pair of spikes and see what my 200-meter time is. And then before you know it, you're that childish curiosity mindset again, which is, in my opinion, why most people try new things and enjoy training in the first place, because they want to see how they can interact with it.
It's play, and it's opportunity to explore your boundaries and your capabilities, and like you say, just your
and it's completely open-ended. That's the key.
Well.
There's no parameters you need to operate within. Even though TikTok is trying to tell you you need to step on a bodybuilding stage and run 7 miles every morning with your top off, going "Oorah!" and going to massive fucking gyms where you've got clanging and banging plates and machines and all this. It's not that. That's just what people that are finding this for the first time are discovering in really quite concentrated areas of North America. But it's you can make of hybrid training whatever you see fit.
Yeah.
The premise is conflicting specific goals.
Well, there's the key, isn't it? Is that to your example, we could talk about being curious and coming from a place of really very good fitness and saying, oh, well, I'd like to try some running. And then you do that. And then you say, well, that's kind of more of a pendulum swing in that particular example. What we enjoy the ability to do and offer as coaches, I think, is the opportunity for somebody to come at it already with one particular bias, if you like. So you could come from a place of fitness and think, I'd really love to try an ultramarathon. I'd also really like to see what my strength is like and powerlift. I'll have to do one in 2025 and I'll have to do that one in 2026. And we're saying, actually, if you're starting from if this point here is you've got a little bit of a baseline of fitness, what we can do is make that, I guess that's concurrence and that's fitness, quote unquote. And this is where the arguments seem to happen online, is we're saying, why not do both? And that means that your curiosity can be satisfied way outside of what you thought was your planning perspective, way outside of what you thought was your opportunity, perspective. And so we're saying, well, if you want to run an ultramarathon and you want to maybe enter a powerlifting competition, let's do both those things. No, that's fucking impossible. Well, it's not, because the concept of being hybrid makes both those things concurrently possible, which allows us to kind of do both. And that's where that curiosity really gets super satisfied, because then you can kind of play with different components of that. You think, well, powerlifting wasn't for me, but I love the skill of weightlifting. It's still right, I'm going to do that. And I've never really swam very far. I'm going to do that too. So you get to explore all of it at once. And I think that's a key thing. So the curiosity opportunity is satisfied quicker in a strange sense, isn't it? Because you can say, well, I'm curious about ultramarathons, so I'm going to dedicate the next. And there are people out there claiming to be super hybrid who have just come from a place of fitness and then concentrate 6 months on bodybuilding. Well, you just became a bodybuilder for a bit. That isn't particularly hybrid. And I guess that's where the nuance is like, well, if you want to become a bodybuilder for 6 months, you want to become an ultra runner for the 6 months after that, and then you want to come back and start lifting again for 6 months after that, then really what we're saying is, why not try all those things and just enjoy them?
Yep. Dr. Phil put up a really good post the other day about how hybrid training is a form of concurrent training, but not all concurrent training is hybrid training, which was a really good way of looking at things. And probably something we'll discuss with him separately in the future. So no spoilers. But anyway, from the flip side, let's kind of look at things through the lens of a endurance athlete that might have an itch to do a bodyweight squat for the first time or bench 2 plates for the first time and isn't quite sure where to begin, or they've got their local running club laughing in their face when they say they want to go to the gym down the road, because that's where all those bodybuilder gym bunnies go, because there's a lot of waffly bullshit that you hear coming out of running forums and things. That I just don't think does anyone any good. And at the end of the day, I think anyone that's training recreationally should be supportive of anyone else that's training recreationally. The end. Yep. So for those that come from a running, triathlon, endurance, ultra running, whatever it is background, I personally think the merit to dabbling with hybrid training is, one, to increase your proficiency and skill with movements, which in turn will allow you to better understand your biomechanics, which when it comes to manipulating them for speed, pace, power output, is a good place to be. I think the best way to learn how to manipulate your body position for certain gain, or what contractions happen when you move X bone in X plane, the best way to do that is through weightlifting.
I can give you a brilliant example of this in a minute. You crack on.
You can do it right now.
Well,
forget the minute. Go.
We'll do it now. We've already brought him up. Get some traffic surges to who Chris Gethin is in a minute, but a very, very good example that I've seen borne out so many times, experientially since then, is that when we got him on a bike and started moving him on the bike, if like anything, if you're learning a new sport, you're going to have to learn what the efficiencies of that sport are. So to be on a bike for the first time, most people will sit a little bit off the saddle and try and push down on the pedals. And we still, with every athlete that's new to the bike, we'll teach them to kind of churn that crank and turn it around like they're churning butter, and make sure you put power down on every part of that clock. as they turn it. That's just one means of sort of improving efficiency on the bike. When we talked to Chris about it, the transition from being inefficient to efficient within that particular cue happened in moments. We were able to say, think of using your thigh this way, think of using your calves that way, think of engaging your glutes this way. And because of his bodybuilding background, not because of his strength, but because of his understanding of his own physical movement, he was able to apply that kinesthetically really, really, really quickly. And it was very impressive to see. So the carryover there, when you flip it back to that sort of curious endurance athlete, whether it's a runner or not, is to say, well, that interaction with yourself physically, that interaction with physical movement, that's that sort of slowed, I guess, inefficient movement where you're learning to kind of operate within this slow kind of time under tension, as an example, or a larger range of motion, because obviously the cyclical movement of running is very different. You learn so much about how your body moves, so much about how your muscles move, that you can then take that back to running and apply it and add efficiencies that you never thought were possible. So the carryover, and there's much, much more there. The carryover is really, really apparent when you kind of try and mix these things up. So, yeah, the idea of bodybuilding or the idea of moving in the gym being somewhat
it's just moving weight from A to B, however we categorize it. Yeah,
I mean,
even if it is strength and conditioning, but it's actual strength work rather than banded density, the glute med work. That's not strength training. That's strength. The bone density, is huge. You're going to make yourself. I was going to use a word that doesn't exist there. Certainly, we're not talking about bulletproofing people by any stretch, but I mean, there's nobody needs to argue or really describe in detail why bone density or exceptional bone density would be good. Weight training is going to help with that. The proprioception, sort of your physical understanding of where you are in time and space, is going to be made hugely better through weight training. That efficiency we just talked about. And postural control, if you've got an ability to maintain a strong posture through a bike ride or through a long run that you didn't have previously, then again, your time to fatigue increases, and you're a better runner, you're a better endurance athlete. And that's just skimming the surface of it. So all these kind of things apply in very much the converse way to the previous example. There are so many benefits that from a strength and conditioning perspective, you could just say, let's just add this, this, and this, and you'll just become a better runner. But you also then expose somebody to the opportunity to say, maybe I want to really see how far I can push my strength limits. Maybe I want to see how strong I can possibly get. I better not do that because it might impact my ultra running. And you're like, nope, let's just do both and get all those benefits we talked about, all those secondary and tertiary benefits that we haven't even talked about, and also continue your ultramarathon journey whilst making you a savage in the gym. Yeah.
Why would you not want that?
Well, I think a lot of people don't enjoy or are intimidated by the notion of the gym, which I think is something that can be tackled proactively with maybe conversations like this one. But I think, there is a real resistance to lifting by people that might see it as the antithesis of what they do. But at the end of the day, from a physiological point of view, a lot of endurance work is kind of controlling looseness, whereas strength is controlling tightness and rigidity, and therefore the spike in demand that is required from a top end point of view, a heavy set of 3 versus even, let's say, a 100-meter sprint. They're totally different things in terms of the output and application required, and putting yourself in that position mentally is just another sort of arrow in the sleeve for you to fire in terms of things that you've got available to you. And if you want to be a well-rounded athlete and you want to actually try and reinforce yourself structurally, get stronger in a full range of motion, and therefore become more efficient through a full range of motion, evidence that there's injury preventative benefits there as well, then proper lifting and proper strength training can be a very valuable thing to do. And you might discover that you really enjoy it and then set some strength goals. And then before you know it, hang on, I'm doing more of the things that I enjoy that are rewarding for me as an individual, that give me a more well-balanced across the spectrum of training discipline existence day to day. Maybe I can't go to as many track sessions as I can previously with my running because I need to make room for one of the powerlifting sessions at my local gym. But it means that I'm still scratching the itch with both ends of the spectrum and making progress in general terms. Am I making it as quickly as I would have done? Was I focusing on one thing and not the other? Probably not. But
am I still progressing in both these things that I'm now interested in? Well, certainly, yes.
And that's a good thing in my mind. And again, people will be focused on individual specialized sports, which is no issue.
You said a minute ago that made me kind of correct the way I was talking, the way I was thinking. Is there's no right and wrong there either. What we're saying is you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
We can help facilitate that opportunity, or being hybrid can help facilitate that opportunity. If you don't want anything to do with Jonny or Fergus, but probably wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't. But
probably not.
If
so, welcome. Hello.
Thanks for turning up. The cultural kind of difference between these things has been interesting to watch over the years, especially with my advanced years compared to yours maybe, is that you'll see, we're triathletes, we don't talk to these people, or we're endurance runners, we don't talk to these people, or, we're strength athletes, what are those fucking idiots doing up there in the bloody hills, and all this kind of stuff. Now, what I see has been really exciting is that hybrid, the world that we're involved in, and the conversations that we're having with people, allows people to kind of blur those lines a little bit and cross over them and walk backwards and forwards between these different camps, and feel quite home in all of them, which can't be anything but good, because then you're breaking down those barriers as well, which are sort of niche and closed doors and kind of private group driven. You say, well, what's the Slow Twitch forum, which I hope everybody's slowly starting to hate, was very much closed door. We're the people that know. If you don't know what we know, you're bloody stupid. And those kind of doors getting...
And letsrun.com.
Yeah. Those kind of doors getting broken down, and those kind of barriers being pushed back is great for everybody, because then you have the opportunity to do it. Yep. But if you have the opportunity to do it whilst not having to say, oh, now I'm an ultra runner, or now I'm a triathlete, you just say, no, I'm just somebody who is hybrid. I enjoy all these things, and I'm just trying to better myself in whatever the hell I want to better myself in. Then that's a massive benefit.
You never see Josh Kerr or Lucy Charles Barclay or Michael Phelps denouncing any of these things. No. And they're the only people that have earned the right to be able to have an opinion on how to become the best in the world at something. Again, it's the whole runners judging triathletes. Why be average at 3 sports when you can be good at one, as they're coming middle of the pack in their local park run? Like, well,
tell that to Jess Ennis.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's just this strange misconception that everybody has the desire to be the best in the world at the thing that they choose to focus on, rather than using training as a very effective tool for a better life.
Yeah.
And with geopolitics and news on a day-to-day basis, I'd say that we're all in some way or another striving for a better existence. And I think one of the lowest hanging, most available fruits to us is a broad range of training spectrums that allow us to act like we are a kid in PE that's trying new things for the first time. Yeah. You might make new friends. You might discover that actually your identity is misattached or misaligned to the wrong sport, like I have found myself in the position in previously. You might then decide, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go and do a 100k race in Malta over the summer, take my kids with me, and we're going to have a great time, and I'm going to feel like I've really achieved something, rather than doing push-pull legs at my local Pure Gym after the job that I don't like that much in London, and I'm a bit sick of.
Lifter.
Exactly. So that's where I see the value. It goes way beyond competitiveness and performance measurements, and it's much, much more, dare I say, holistic than that.
Yeah, I've used this analogy in lots of different context, but it works really well here. Is that kind of fly on the TV thing I've talked about before, is that what you get is the opportunity for a much, much bigger perspective. And then you can still make considered choices based on your personality and what you actually want. But if you're a fly on the television and you're looking at the television, you think you can see the screen. You can't see the screen. You're only seeing the pixels that you're sat on. If you get the opportunity to fly out, have a look at it, see the whole thing, and think, oh my God, look at that massive picture. Look at the clarity. Look at the things I can learn. Look at the things I can see. Look at the enjoyment I can have. That's what hybrid gives you, is that chance to pull.
And then you can decide if you want that pixel's fucking class.
That.
You can fly right into it.
I'm going right over here and then out again. Oh, I'm going to go right over here. But having the opportunity to see that whole thing.
Feels like a Simpsons sketch. I feel like it's the sort of thing. Yeah.
Having the opportunity to see that and that kind of the vastness and having that perspective, and then that clarity, and then choosing where you want that clarity is part of the battle and part of the enjoyment that I think hybrid gives you, because you can zoom out and go, I want all of that. I want all of it, and I want to encompass it and see it and enjoy it. Or no, I just want to go over here.
And at the end of the day,
enjoy it.
At the end of the day, no one cares. As we'll always round out these podcasts, not always, but often round out these, we would be foolish to think that anyone actually cares about our times on a Monday night at the track or what we can lift. Yeah. We can dress it up and put it on social media and make it a bit more exciting, but no one really cares.
Well, in about 50 years, you're going to be in a box with a 7-minute eulogy, and 4 weeks later, everybody's having a pint and forgot about you. Nobody's going to say, remember when Jonny ran that 3:45 or whatever it might have been.
And if you find yourself thinking that people do care about what other people are doing, then you could well be in some form of clique or echo chamber that you'd maybe merit from getting out of. Is my biased opinion. There might be people listening thinking, oh, well, no, he's wrong and I'm angry about this and therefore I don't like the way he's training. Well, I stand by what I just said. And again, I'd like to think that we're quite biased where we don't have any opinions on anyone that isn't in our world, that doesn't see things the same way that we do. Well, we just enjoy training for the sake of training, in the knowledge that most people in the world are training for themselves, not for others.
Yeah.
And if you then get confused by thinking that you're training for others and that you need to perform for others, or that you need to hit this milestone to belong to this or belong to that or to appease these people, then you might fall into the trap of doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons, and you may well benefit from getting out of that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm keen to hold on to with hybrid, as opposed to being in any way possessive about it and all the rest of it, is the opportunity to say, stop trying to build these fences and these boxes around it and own it and all the rest of it. You know, if ever we push back and say that's not hybrid, it's because what is being demonstrated is closing things off again and saying, oh, only this bit's hybrid, only this bit's hybrid. Yeah. No. Let's smash all that down. Let's fly on the TV. Let's let anybody have the opportunity. So when you say, oh, hybrid's just fitness, or we used to call it whatever, no, you probably didn't. And B,
why didn't you, mate?
Yeah, exactly. And B, what does that prove anyway? You know, you're just trying to piss on somebody's chips here, and all that gets is pissy chips.
Nobody likes pissy chips.
No, nobody likes pissy chips. And if you do like
raccoons
pissy chips,
might like pissy chips.
Think about it.
Rats. Maybe some dogs that haven't been fed in a couple of hours. But does anyone listening want to be any of those things?
No.
Probably not. So therefore, let's avoid pissy chips, because we'd all rather the chips were not covered in piss.
Yes.
Anyway, to round things out, no one cares. Try new things if you feel like there's merit in doing so. It might make you a better person. You might enjoy your training more and more. And if you're listening, you're probably not a world champion in your sport, and therefore we can assume that you train for recreational reasons, which means that the whole exciting world of events and things to pursue out there, people to meet, things to do, places to go, and we are biased in the opinion that we have both reaped a lot of reward from doing exactly that. Mm-hmm. So if you in any way have an itch to scratch with any sort of event, strength or endurance or otherwise, then we recommend that you dip your toe in and see how you get on. 100%. And if you then decide, you know what, I really do miss focusing on specializing and going for a 700 kilo total, then great, you've learnt a lesson and you can go back to going all in, all eggs in the basket of a 700 kilo total. And please send us the videos, because that is a lot of weight. Yeah,
it's just a little bit more than what I've lifted. Just.
Super total, yeah?
Yeah, over the course of 6 weeks. I'm just the shopping.
A 700 kilo super total. Could you do a 700 kilo super total? Probably. I think you could.
Quite possibly, yeah.
What could you total SBD at the moment? Bench is pretty good at the moment, isn't it?
140 bench, I would say. Where are we going with this? 140 bench, if I practice properly, I get 230, maybe 240 dead.
You've got 230 conservatively. You're not getting any gimmies here.
Under a squat of anything over 4 kilos.
160 you could do for a high bar single at the moment, couldn't you?
Yeah, I got 180.
180, okay. 180 plus 140. What's that?
That's 240.
320.
I'm going to say 240.
No, 230. 230. What's that?
Around
320. So that's
deliberately avoiding my gaze.
550.
There you go then.
Plus clean and jerk and snatch. That's the super total, Johnny. 550. So you only need to get 150 kilos across the two. Yeah.
Jerk.
So you do have a 700
clean
kilos.
Jerk 120. Snatch about 4 kilos again.
Okay.
My wrists don't do that. So where are we getting? Where do we get to?
If you can do 120 clean and jerk, you only need to snatch 30 kilos, which I'd like.
I think I can snatch 30 kilos.
Okay. That's good news.
I wouldn't like to. This is going out in a podcast. I don't think I want to say I can definitely snatch 30 kilos in case I can single arm snatch. Yes, I can snatch 30 kilos then. Yeah.
Okay. So you do have a 700 kilo total. That was good fun. That was good fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that was a fun trip down
nice
analysis lane.
Yeah.
Check Zoopla for local house prices on analysis lane.
Very hybridy. I can also run very, very, very far. So there you go.
There you are.
Who's the ultimate hybrid athlete? I think we just established I am. Thank you and good night. I nearly chucked that over there and then thought,
that's quite expensive. It's quite expensive equipment. Please don't do that. And we can't end there. So let's end with a poem. I'm just kidding. Thanks, everyone. Aside from Johnny's...
I could probably fight you for a good 25 minutes without gassing out.
You can tell that Johnny's ego has been challenged here because he
really.
said he's going to fight me.
Yeah.
Tune in next week
Well,
for...
I'm going to mean anybody, really.
You're going to fight anyone?
Let's not put that on the internet.
It's always
I
on
can
the
fight
internet somewhere.
anybody. Oh, shit. Why is my door keep getting kicked in? Right, this has gone weird. This has gone very weird. Quickly.
Thank you very much for listening. If you're listening and haven't yet checked us out on YouTube, please do that. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. Go to the audio platform at some point as well. At the very least, hit subscribe or rate us 5 stars. Cheers, thanks. Other than that, mailing list down below. Tune in next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Website, check it out, all that stuff. You can join us for a experience weekend in July if you would so please. And there is a link on the website for that too. So maybe we'll see you there.
Please don't try and fight me when you get there. But do come see us.
Great sell, Johnny. Thanks. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.